personally involved with alcohol when you were younger. Tell us how you got involved and how you subsequently got help.
Well, basically, I grew up in an alcoholic household, and as a result of growing up in an alcoholic household, there's a lot of problems associated with that, and especially emotionally, just not dealing with your feelings very well, not really liking yourself, and I had a lot of very common characteristics. And as a result of that, ultimately, I was introduced to alcohol at 16 for the first time of actually getting drunk, and from then on, I instantly fell in love with it. I instantly liked what it did for me, which was to take away the pain, particularly emotionally, just to make me forget. Escapism, really. I instantly also fell into drugs, too. And in the course of just a couple short years, my drinking and drugging caused me to go to prison for an 8-year sentence. And as a result of being in prison, after about 2 years, I was introduced to some treatment. And as a result of that, I've gotten sober and have stayed sober since then, and that was 6 years ago.
16, is that relatively, you work with young people. I also might want to add that Terry's involved in the aftercare. He's the aftercare coordinator for the Gateway. So you work with a lot of young people. Is your story typical?
For the most part, except they're a little younger sometimes. Not always, but there seems to be this common thread that more like 13 or 14 that they're first getting introduced to getting drunk on alcohol.
What would have made the difference in your life as you look back now?
There was, both of my parents who are alcoholic are recovered, and as a result of that, and I was still fairly young even before I was introduced to alcohol, and this treatment process started, and as that went on, it's hard to say possibly if that had been more intensified, but then at other times, you would even consider me a high-risk kid. Any child who has an alcoholic parent is considered high risk, and ultimately maybe there was nothing that could have been done.
Alcohol, we might add, is the number one or the most widely used drug among American young people. That statistic is old, but it's still the same, correct?
Yeah, that and also adults, too. It's the number one abused drug for adults, too.
What difference does it make with a young person who is abusing alcohol as opposed to an adult person? Is there a difference?
Oh, for sure. Physically, an adolescent's body is going through changes as they are adolescents. And so their bodies are more sensitive to alcohol. They're learning how to drink as they start to drink in terms of building up a tolerance. Most teenagers, the first time someone drinks, it doesn't take them much to feel the effects, or they might even get sick as a result of drinking. Whereas an adult, because of conditioning, you might call it, that doesn't happen as often in terms of getting sick or not knowing how to control what their limit is, you could say. And because of that, adolescents become physically addicted to alcohol sooner and quicker than adults do. Another thing is, too, adolescents are more immature. They're more likely to overreact when they're drunk, more impulsively in terms of their behavior.
The area's anti-drunk driving campaign is really focused on drinking and driving.
Right.
Did you drink and drive when you were on alcohol?
A few times. I didn't get my license until I was older, but I even drove without a license, too, and alcohol even told me that was okay to do that. And that's the thing, alcohol tells you things are okay. And so a few times I did. I even wrecked one of my buddy's cars because of being drunk. My reaction time being slower and driving very recklessly.
How old are you now?
27.
Do you see, what difference have you seen in attitudes and awareness campaigns regarding alcohol?
I think it's been good. The awareness has been risen, and as a result of that being risen, the fatalities on the highway have lowered some in terms of numbers that die each year. So I commend that, and as we see now that the laws have changed some, and more people are doing more time. More people are more aware, particularly the the social drinker, the person who drinks occasionally, they are the ones who are more aware of not drinking and driving, that they prearrange some kind of arrangement where they won't drive drunk. The thing, though, that doesn't seem to affect, in terms of awareness, is the problem drinker. That, for the most part, your problem drinker is your main person out there driving and drinking, because they're drinking more often, usually several times a week, where a social drinker isn't. And as a result of that, our society still hasn't really come to terms with really looking at alcoholism and that problem drinker person. So there needs to be more awareness that way, towards that person, because that's your main number one drunk driver in terms of numbers.
How is it, though, that the problem drinker finally realizes that he or she is, in fact, a problem and they need to seek help? What are the things that are prevalent in their lives that actually makes them recognize this?
As far as symptoms, that would be like an intervention would happen, and that would be...
and in your case, the intervention was going to jail?
Was going to jail. And then the help of some individuals and counseling was able to... Yeah, and what was pointed out was symptoms. And some of the symptoms are blackouts, that's alcohol amnesia. My bottom one that was shared with me that I even use today is if alcohol causes problems, then alcohol is the problem. Well, not every time you drank you got in trouble, but every time you got in trouble you were drinking. And an alcoholic can usually relate to that. The whole thing is part of that disease is denial. And so the denial is to deny there's even any symptoms. So it takes some real skill and love and concern for individuals to break through that, whether it's a counselor or family members or friends, in confronting an alcoholic.
You mentioned that you got involved because your parents were involved with alcohol. For the person who comes from that particular background, how does it happen that they get help? Does parents recognize, or does the child, in fact, do the, I guess the recognition is the main one. How does it happen that you're able to get out of that situation coming from that background?
Again, treatment. There's programs like Alcoholics Anonymous, there's Alateen, there's Al-Anon, there's a number of counseling programs, both outpatient and inpatient, that apply a lot of really self-help kind of concepts that seem to work the best. And people with the same kinds of problems being able to help others with the same kinds of problems. This is common bond kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of empathy that goes on among people who have the same problems. That in itself is really basically the most successful program. Most inpatient and outpatient programs use what I'm referring to as like the AA model, where it is a self-help concept.
As a result of being incarcerated, what happened then? Were you, I don't know, were you allocated to a particular facility, or how did you happen to get involved in, say, a place like the Gateway? Or was that the first place that you were involved with once you came out of jail?
No, when I came out of out of prison,
That's a terrible term, came out of jail.
Came out of jail.
But in your case, it helped you.
Well, actually, in my case, I even got out of jail before I got out of jail. It's just part of the addiction is just being a prison within yourself. And so the day I got out of prison, I already felt free. And so my last year or so in prison was very manageable and tolerable because I had been, pretty much released. Because in jail, I drank and drugged in there. Okay. But as I got out of prison, though, I moved from my area. For peers was going to be a problem for me when I got out of prison, and I knew that it was a problem for me when I used. And so I moved to Southern Maryland instead of central part of Maryland. And did school talks and started doing volunteer work. And as a result of that, got in the field about 4 years ago. I got into actually counseling in Charles County.
Was that a part of your sentence, or did you do that on your own?
No, I did that on my own. I did that on my own. The other benefit is that by helping another individual, you're helping yourself. It gets you out of being so self-centered. Alcoholics are very self-centered individuals, and by getting out of yourself and helping another individual, that does help yourself.
Tell us a little bit about the Gateway and what it is that you actually do there, how you are actually able to help young people who come there.
Okay, first of all, it is basically a 8-week program. in the beginning phase. So we have phases. And the first phase is a 2-week phase where we have where people are diagnosed and they're in process of treatment. And through the result of the first couple of weeks of treatment, we can determine whether that kid is an alcoholic or a drug abuser or both. And if that in fact they are, then they stay for another 6 weeks. And in the 6-week program, they're exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous every day. They have group therapy every day. They have school. They also have a lifestyle education kind of group. They have a peer group that something that I'm responsible for, where the peers, it's their group, and they confront each other when a new adolescent is coming in the program. The other kids will focus on them and see whether they're willing or able to see that they're alcoholic or drug abuser, and there's a lot of confrontation that goes on there.
So it's a drug treatment center or an alcohol
So it's a
treatment
chemical
center.
dependency unit is a kind of a term that they use now. It's chemical dependency unit.
Which includes drugs and alcohol.
Drugs and alcohol.
And so forth. What would you say, though, to the young person who may be seeking help, who may not know where to turn? What's the first thing that this young person should do?
If a young person wanted to get help, one easy thing to do is look in a phone book and look under alcoholism, look under alcohol services. There's Alcoholics Anonymous, there's alcohol counseling program, there's our program, the Gateway, and getting on the phone and calling someone. Another thing that's helpful too is to talk to family members or friends if they have any left that they can talk to, because that there will be a strained relationship usually with an adolescent or an adult who's alcoholic with the people closest to them.
But once you show the desire to change,
then
they would
possibly, but possibly too, though, an adolescent's already said that. It might be the 100th time they've said, I'm ready to get help now. In some cases, that happens too. But then, again, if they're sincere, then the idea is to follow that up, especially if you're making an effort by trying to reach out to a place to get help, like a counseling center or an AA or NA meeting, then maybe the support of family members would be helpful. It would be helpful, not maybe, it would be.
So that family support and support of friends is very important for young people to turn to.
Extremely. I really believe that if you have at least one parent behind an adolescent when they're in treatment, you improve your success by 50%, that kid won't have a relapse.
Well, Perry, you are one of the success stories. You've managed to overcome your problem, and you're now helping others to overcome theirs, and you're certainly to be commended. But we know that there are still numerous youngsters out there who need help, and we're going to give out a telephone number for the Gateway. And like Perry said, just call this number and ask for help, and they will be able to help you. 467-5744 is the main number for the Gateway if you want more information about their program or about any other program, and they can help you out. They also have free pamphlets, which is New Hope for the Teenage Drug Abuser, which is one of them, and there are other pamphlets, so just call that number, 467-5744. I want to thank you very much, Perry. You're very brave, and congratulations for the good work that you're doing. Keep it up.
Okay.
When we come back, we'll tell you how you can protect yourself from the dangers of heat. Stay with us.
Much of our editorial effort this summer will be geared to addressing the problem of drunk drivers. One ingredient in the overall solution is public awareness, and the AAA believes in starting early, and so do we. Today's kids drink. Here are some startling
Drinking problems. We'll talk today with two local counselors who are helping young people get their lives back together. We'll also hear from some parents who have helped their kids overcome alcohol problems. And first, we were joined by some young people themselves. They will be sharing their personal experiences as well as how they are helping others now. Let's welcome Beth, who is 18 years old, and joining Beth is 16-year-old Frank. They would prefer not to disclose their full names. Welcome, both of you, to Eye on Washington. You were both involved in a program that we have been hearing a lot about because it's a highly acclaimed program, and it's a program connected with the Gateway, which is part of the Psychiatric Institute of the District of Columbia. Would you say that that kind of program is the answer to the problems that, such as the two of you experienced?
Not alone. Not that program alone. You need other supports behind it.
Mm-hmm. Frank, you agree?
Yeah, I agree with that. You need, a program plus support.
When you say support, you mean the support of other people like parents or like friends or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Is that very easily accessible for young people who get in trouble with alcohol or drugs?
Not unless they want it, and not many teenagers want help like that. They go about asking for it in very abstract ways, like getting arrested several times or just about anything else you can think of.
Suicide, anything.
So you're saying that's a manner of asking for help?
Yeah.
Getting arrested is sort of a way of saying, look at me, I need help?
Mm-hmm.
The suicide is. The getting arrested is just showing your parents that you're not doing too well.
Mm-hmm. Did your parents, and we will be speaking to both of their parents later on in another segment, and did your parents at first recognize that you had a problem?
Not that I know of, no. I don't think she knew for a very long time until I was to the point where it was more than a problem to be solved in the family.
I'm looking at both of you now, and you are, as you told me, recovering alcoholics. You look fantastic. To look at you, no one would ever believe that you had a problem. And is that all a part of the way that the treatment that you receive is administered? Is it a part of the attitude? What is it that makes you two look like typically normal, middle-class American kids? Not a problem in the world.
A lot of people that drink and do drugs, they look normal. It's normal people that do drugs, alcohol.
As your attitude changes as far as your views on alcohol and drugs, you start to feel better about yourself. And when you start feeling better about yourself, you start dressing nicer and looking nicer. That's what I've experienced.
How old were you when you became involved?
12 years old.
You were 12.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you, Frank?
I was 10.
You were 10. Is that a likely age for young people to become involved? And how did you become involved?
It is,
It seems awfully young.
it's getting younger. It is. Every year it's getting younger. I know somebody started PCP when they were 6.
Is that person still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive. He went through treatment, but he's back out using.
Mm-hmm. How did you become involved?
It was about the only thing I could find to do, really.
And was it alcohol?
It was drugs.
Okay.
It was marijuana.
Mm-hmm. And so did marijuana lead you to something else, or were you able to simply
In a
stop?
way, yeah. I was looking for something that was different every time I tried a new drug. I was looking for a different type of feeling.
You mentioned the self-esteem, the way that you feel about yourself when you finally do seek help. How did you feel about yourself when you were having the problems?
Pretty bad.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I didn't feel too highly of myself. I still have a problem with my low self-esteem, talking to people. I feel low about myself, not too high about myself.
How does that happen to young people? I mean, we parents are so happy when we have children. Most of us are just overjoyed, overwhelmed, and we think we do the best thing. But what is it that causes a young person who is so loved by their parents? And of course, in many cases, not everyone is loved, but in your cases, I'm sure you were. What is it that made you decide or what is it that happened to you? To cause you to have low self-esteem? Can you pinpoint it?
I don't know from personal, I haven't gone that far deep into myself to understand that. What I do understand from other people is that it's something that we just don't have any control over. It's embedded in our personalities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it has anything to do with the parents, really.
You don't think that it's fair to label parents, which in so many cases people do. Well, the parents failed, and in a lot of cases parents themselves think that they failed.
No, my parents tried as hard as they could, and it just happened the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing they could do about it.
What are you doing now to help others either overcome their problems or not even get involved in the first place? Are there specific things that you're doing?
What I do is I set an example for other people. That's all I can do right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any plans on going into counseling or anything like that, but I feel that just by setting an example, other people will see, well, she's doing better. She's not doing the drugs or drinking the booze.
Mm-hmm.
The aftercare, the alumni group, we
Of
go on.
Gateway?
Yeah, we go on talks, and we talk to halfway houses. We've talked to counselors before, and doing shows like this to go on saying, you know, to the kids that if you need help, there is help, and that's what helps us out.
What are the chances that you might fall back? Hopefully you won't, but is there any surefire way to know that you won't?
No, the ratio right now, from what I understand, is the first 10 that you go through with, 1 will die, 7 of them will go back, and the 2 will be straight. She's not best not in with the first 10 with me. 1 has died, 7 have gone back, and 2 are still straight.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Beth, you psych yourself up and just self-hypnosis. What's your secret?
Going to self-help group meetings and realizing where I came from. I have to keep a constant reminder of what I was before now, or I'll forget and I'll just fall right back into it.
What's the best advice that you can give young people who may now be involved in alcohol or drugs and may want help? How do you convince them to do it? Beth, how would you convince them?
Ask their parents instead of getting in trouble.
Go right to their parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, just say, Mom, Dad, I need help for drugs and alcohol. That's the best thing they can do.
Well, I certainly admire the two of you. Thank you very much for sharing something that's very personal to you, and I'm sure that by your sharing, you're certainly helping any others out there that who may have the problem. Got to give you credit for it. Thanks a lot. When we come back, we'll meet the parents to find out their views. Stay with us.
Sometimes the accomplishments of individuals go unnoticed with the passing of time. August marks the birthdays of 2 such people. Recent and present generations of black Americans relate to men like Martin Luther King Jr., Ralph Abernathy, and Jesse Jackson as blacks who have made outstanding contributions in the fight for civil rights and to America in general. But there are others of past generations who should be remembered. Roy Wilkins, who died in September of 1981 at the age of 80, was a noted black leader and was often called Mr. Civil Rights. Wilkins, the grandson of a slave, graduated from the University of Minnesota and worked for a black Kansas City newspaper before joining the NAACP back in 1931. He became the executive secretary of that organization in 1955. And during a long tenure in that post, Wilkins helped direct the fight for equal rights and opportunities for blacks. Another name that Americans should not forget is that of Dr. Ralph Bunche. Bunche, who worked his way through the University of California and received a Ph.D. from Harvard, started a teaching career at Howard University in 1928. He was appointed to the UN Palestine Commission in 1947 and arranged the Arab-Israeli armistice in 1949. And for that miraculous feat, Dr. Bunche received the Nobel Peace Prize. He joined the State Department and was a delegate or advisor to 9 international conferences in 4 years. Bunche helped lay the groundwork for the United Nations and served as Undersecretary of the UN from 1955 to 1971. Roy Wilkins and Dr. Ralph Bunche are just 2 people who made great contributions to America and to the world. They are 2 black Americans who should never be forgotten.
This has been an editorial opinion of WDCA TV. Your comments are welcome. Write WDCA TV, 5202 River Road, Bethesda, Maryland, 20816.
We have heard from some young people who were involved in alcohol and drugs. We'll now hear from their parents and to find out how they were instrumental in helping their children through these times of crisis. Okay, you are Frank's father and Beth's mother. I think we got that right. When your children are certainly to be commended, as I told them in the last segment, it must not be easy to get up here in front of cameras and you know, spread your life open. And is that a part of I guess, the recovery kind of program, to be able to admit it and say, okay, I did it, it's over, and now I want to go forth and try and help someone else?
Yes, I would go along with that. We're not, at least I don't want any other parent to go along with what we had gone through with our youngster, not knowing. And through our support groups, we've been able to help other parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Other parents, when they come into the support group, what's the feeling?
They're very apprehensive because they really don't know what's in store for them. And it's very comforting for a new parent to be able to talk with someone who's been through it themselves.
So it's easier for them with the help of parents like yourselves who have gone through it?
Yes, hopefully, yes.
Mm-hmm. How did you find out about your children's problem? And I guess the obvious question is, how did you feel when you found out? The whole guilt trip, did you go through that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a stage of denial. You don't want to believe it. Mm-hmm. You really don't think it's true, and you don't want to probe deeply enough to find out that it may be true. In our case, it was just simply brought to our attention, and we had to face it.
Brought to your attention by whom?
By the school officials.
School officials, okay.
The same holds true with us. The school officials had brought to our attention, but also we had a power struggle within the family where Frank decided he was going to do what he wanted to. Mm-hmm. And this sudden change brought me to realize there's something wrong somewhere. Mm-hmm. So
you do see a change.
There is a sudden
in
change.
Your children.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that you did to get help for them?
Well, we had them arrested and put them in court through the court system.
Now you did that yourself?
I did this.
That
well,
must
with
not
the
have
help
been
of
easy
the help of the police department, we had them put into the court system, and then the judge allowed us to find a program for him. So we went that route.
We just simply decided that something had to be done, and we went about finding a program that we felt comfortable with.
Do you consider that you're lucky and you have your children, they're on the road to recovery? A lot of parents are not as lucky.
Oh, absolutely. It brings the family together again, the recovery process, because up until that time, we were very fragmented, and there was a lot of problems in the family.
Alex, how would you go about convincing the parent who is apprehensive about supporting their child through this?
Could you repeat that again?
How would you go about convincing a parent who may be going through what you went through previously with your child to support the child? Where would you advise them to go? How would you advise them to deal with it within themselves?
I would advise them to, if they know of anybody that has this problem before, to call them on the phone. Also, to contact various parent support groups in the area, and they're tremendous help for us.
Mm-hmm. We're going to be giving out a telephone number of the Gateway in the next segment. The Gateway can advise them and counsel them on different areas near them, right, or different programs that are near them.
There are a lot of hotlines in the area that
yes,
should be used.
Yes, and we have actually have a telephone number for the hotline. Recently, the 21-year drinking age was passed nationally. How do you feel about that?
I would say go for it.
Do you think that's going to help solve the problem of young people killing themselves on the highways?
I'm not sure that that alone is going to solve the problem. I think that educating our young people on what alcohol and drugs can do to them is going to be more helpful than just passing laws.
Mm-hmm. What about the parent who feels guilty, who absolutely says, hey, it's my fault? How can you help them?
The only thing I could tell you through my experience is that it's not my fault. I've done the best I could to raise my child, and the responsibility was left on him. Don't feel bad about it. I've been through scouting programs and camping programs with him, teenage programming, and done everything I could do. I did have this problem at one time, but the support groups have helped me out in this line.
I'm sorry, Peg.
That's okay. I think that's a normal phase to go through, feeling guilty. Guilt and denial are all part of the road to recovery.
What's the best thing that you notice about your child now that it's behind them? What difference has it made in your families?
I'm proud of him, and I think through him we have all grown. Our whole family has grown to where we are a lot more mature, and we're a lot friendlier, and it's just as if the good Lord said, here, take this fellow here and go with him, and so I'm very proud of him.
Peggy?
I feel like I have my daughter back again. I had forgotten what the real person was like underneath all of the drugs and alcohol. And it's a beautiful person under there.
And in many cases, it's a beautiful person, and then when their body is taken over by these substances, it changes them entirely. Found it. So, to parents who need help, you say, go for it, call all the support agencies, get that help, bring your child back to being a person again.
And don't give up on your children.
Don't give up.
And don't feel that you're overreacting. It's better to overreact than it is to let it be, just let it slide. So overreact if you have to.
Okay, as I said to your children, thank you very much for sharing. I mean, that's not easy to open your life up in front of people and looking at you on television, but we certainly commend you and thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll talk to two counselors who are involved professionally with the subject. Be right back.
I like the way the forest sounds, the way the leaves rustle in the wind and fall to the ground and crunch under your feet, the way the birds sing and the chipmunks chatter, the way a squirrel scrambles up a tree. That's why I'm asking you to please be careful with fire, because when we lose a forest, we lose a lot more than meets the eye. I ought to know. I'm Ray Charles.
Hi, kids, I'm Captain 20, flying without an airplane, right? Wrong. No one can fly without an airplane. Yet you see people and cartoon characters doing this and other crazy stunts all the time on TV. Well, this is called fantasy or make-believe. Those super stunts aren't real and can't be done without the help of TV special effects, like the one I was using. So before you try to do some super stunt you've seen on TV, ask your parents if they can do it. If they can't, nobody can, including you. Please play it safe. Leave the TV stunts to the TV people.
Even though teenage alcoholism is a major problem, there is help. And in our area, we are fortunate to have several places that's doing some fantastic work with young people as well as their families. And one of them is the Gateway. And we're now going to be talking with two people who are involved at the Gateway. Perry Gaydurgis, we've met before. Perry is the aftercare coordinator at the Gateway. And the Gateway is a part of the Alcohol Treatment Center of the Psychiatric Institute of the District of Columbia. And joining Perry is Lorraine McNair, and Lorraine is a family counselor. Welcome, both of you, to Eye on Washington, and welcome back, Perry. Well, we've heard the testimony from young people. We've heard testimony from their parents. Are we listening to good luck stories involving the people that we heard on the other segments?
I wouldn't necessarily call them good luck stories. I think all families have a chance with alcohol and drugs. I think we have some success stories that we can certainly talk about, and the two that we have talked about here are certainly successes. All of them, however, do not turn out that way.
What is the difference? What is the connection between the young people who are the success stories and their parents and the young people who are not?
The difference might be that success is ones who are committed to sobriety and to recovery, and committed meaning not just saying I want part of it, but that I want all of it, and then doing the hard work to get that. In terms of being involved in, like our aftercare program, the ones who are doing successfully there are coming to the aftercare programs that we offer, and along with their parents. And that too is very important, to have that parent support also, and that not just the individual with the problem, but the whole family, because actually the whole family has the problem.
And so that's kind of where you're involved, Lorene. You counsel the entire family on, I guess, a cooperative basis, or is it ever separate, where you do the children and then you counsel the parents?
No, I work with the entire family. One thing about chemical dependency, meaning alcoholism and drug abuse, is that it is a family disease, and you really need to address the entire family and that issue with the entire family. I think as far as successes go, the families that have been more involved are probably the ones that have been more successful.
Are the people who are referred to the Gateway, are they, the majority of them referred from the court system?
I would think about a third of them are. Most other programs too. The Gateway is a new program, so we're expanding our contacts, and I see as time goes on that it will be about 50% as most other programs.
Well, is there a difference between the family that you counsel who has been referred to you by the courts and the family who kind of comes in the door on their own initiative?
The only difference is sometimes I think the families that are referred through the court system may be under more pressure, and that certainly sometimes is a leverage to have them involved. That's probably the major difference.
Give us a kind of general idea of how the program actually works. How many times you see the family, what instructions you give them.
Okay, at the time of admission, all of the families are seen for an assessment. I usually do a psychosocial assessment with the parents. I usually just meet with the parents first, and then I formulate a treatment plan to address the family issues, including the substance abuse, and they are usually seen at least once a week in family therapy. Some families are seen twice a week, depending on the needs and the issues.
And of course they're willing, I mean, you don't have to drag them into these the treatments at all?
Oh, we have our share of resistance, for sure. But for the most part, they are pretty cooperative. We have an extensive family program with the Gateway. The parents are actively involved in their own parents group. We have the individual family therapy sessions during the assessment period, and we also have what I call multi-family groups, where I meet with 4 to 5 families together as a group, and we work on issues there. So,
Perry, is there anything that the young people have in common, the young people that are involved in the aftercare treatment?
Well, the one thing they have in common in terms of their chances of going out and using again is peer pressure, where that might be in their leisure time with their old friends, whether they're in school. That seems to be one of the #1 common bonds, is how to deal with their friends when they're on the outside in the alumni program. And one of the ways we help that is we have a Saturday program where the kids in the alumni group go out into the community and do volunteer service work, and we're even looking for more groups who are willing to have us come out and do volunteer work. We've done huggers for Special Olympics. We were down at the Folk Life Festival and volunteers there. And then we do fun things too, where we go to picnics. We went to King's Dominion recently, things like that also too. That these are, and we're like our common peers together that have gone through the process of treatment. So that sort of relearns how to get along with other teenagers.
So it's the idea of togetherness. As we heard from the parents, Peggy specifically was saying that they're all one big family, kind of, the people involved in this program.
Oh, for sure. Tonight we even have our Gateway Open Family meeting where outsiders that have come in can just feel a sense of family in this group. And there's like 40 or 50 individuals at this Thursday night open meeting, and there's just this real sense of family there.
We do these programs to help others who may need help. From both of you, a last statement. What's your best advice to people who need help?
Take a risk, give it a try, and work as a family.
As Lorraine said, take a risk, is that at first there's going to be some initial pain, but that pain is a lot easier than the pain that continues with substance abuse.
Okay.
So is to ask for help.
All right, we want to give out a couple of psychiatrists. We might add that the Gateway has a very good reputation for helping young people and their families. 467-5744. And in Montgomery County, there's a hotline service which is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we want to give you that telephone number if you need just to talk, if you need to find out where the services are. That number is 949-6603, and it's always manned by volunteers, 949-6603. Thank you very much. I want to thank our young people and their parents, and thank the both of you, and keep up the good work. Thanks to our viewers, of course, for joining us. I'm Kathy Dent. We'll see you tomorrow.
That's me, Lanny Basham, receiving a gold medal in international rifle shooting at the '76 Olympic Games. I'm a member of the U.S. Army Reserve.